Well, if you're familiar with my work on the INFJ personality, there is no doubt that you know already that the perhaps the crucial conceptual cornerstone of my work and of my thinking ever since the publication of my first book on the INFJ, the Ecstatic Soul, a new look at the INFJ personality, which investigates what is, INFJ consciousness, what's it like to be an INFJ, as deeply as I could, ever since this book. And it's not changed since then. I have obviously updated my approach. I have changed positions on certain issues. You need to do that if you're to continue evolving as a thinker and a researcher and an investigator and a seeker. But there's something that's never changed, is my deeply committed belief that that alienation, the existential kind of alienation, lies at the root of INFJ experience, lies at the root of the being of the INFJ. To be an INFJ, to be a person for whom the description INFJ fits better than other descriptions, INTJ, INFP, ESFJ, and so forth, is to be alienated in this existential sense, alienated from external reality. Now, I'm not going to go deeper into alienation because I'm assuming most of you guys by now know what this involves, and one of the reasons why this concept has survived is, of course, because empirically in my discussions with you, with other INFJs, I have had the pleasure, if I may call it that, of seeing confirmation that this deeply, deeply resonates. Now, there's two kinds of alienation. There's the good alienation and the bad alienation. If I wanted to simplify things, this is how I would put it. The good alienation is what I called a dissevered alienation, an alienation that has overcome severance. And the bad alienation is severed alienation, an alienation that has not overcome severance. Good alienation takes ownership of alienation and does not see this existential alienation as an impossible to cross screen between the person and the world. Instead, the person accepts it, wears their alienation on their sleeve, so to speak, and brings what's unique and insightful about their particular mode of being to the world and to other people. The severed, alienated INFJ struggles to do this, and fundamentally, it's all linking back to a sense of discomfort with their own alienation, which translates, in fact, as a recentering of the self into itself. It's a defensive process, but it has the unintended and unfortunate consequence of only reinforcing alienation in its bad variety. Now, the way in which this bad alienation can also be understood, and this is what I want to discuss in this video today, is an alienation from meaning. The INFJ is alienated from external reality by definition, shall we say. But they're certainly not alienated from meaning. In fact, if you have read, familiar with my latest book on the INFJ, The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, you know that I think the best description of INFJ talent, of the INFJ gifts that really marks them out as INFJs, is meaning making, recovering the lost meaning of the disenchanted world, the technological disenchanted world of modernity and post-modernity, the world of cause and effects. INFJs are uniquely sensitive to the need to provide a re-enchantment of the world. They're very good at creating new meanings. They're very good at retrieving old, dead meanings and bringing them back in the form, in every case, of symbol and metaphor, okay? But the bad alienation is in fact an alienation from meaning too, which you can understand is going to be a really difficult thing to manage Because if the INFJ is alienated in the first place, but also ends up being alienated from what they are, in some sense destined to become creators of meaning, well, this ends up being quite a hostile, scary and nihilistic place for them indeed. And this alienation from meaning can be understood through the process of, an exaggerated sense of insecurity in the world. An INFJ who's alienated is always going to be oriented to meaning. They cannot help it, and it's also a defense mechanism. A good one, I should say. However, what the sort of badly alienated INFJ does is to ignore, at their own peril, the fact that meaning is actually always relational. That is to say that for INFJs, as I'm sure it is for other people, but for INFJs, meaning is always happening on the margins of an FE type of interaction. Now, that's not to say that NI is not involved. NI is the most important factor, but FE is just as essential, because there is something relational in meaning. And even the most seemingly abstract ramble of an INFJ to whom the particular NI text wall, for example, or monologue is deeply meaningful, is concealing within itself something relational. So you need other people. You need to have your own capacity for creating meanings reflected in the eyes of other people. This is the INFJ way of life, and there's no way of escaping that. And the problem is that sometimes the more sort of insecure INFJs, and often their life histories show that there are a lot of reasons to be insecure. They get blinded to this fact, and they think they can create meaning by themselves. Well, in the case of compliant INFJs, it's almost like they're afraid of their meaning-making ability, which is reflected in their fear of showing their NI too much. And these INFJs often will tend to express their frustration with the absence of meaning in their lives, because that's always a theme in INFJ life, by saying, well, it's the world that's not meaningful enough. People are not bringing me enough meaning. And what they're really saying is, I'm repressing my ability to create meanings, and I'm projecting it outside. With the solipsistic kinds of INFJs, the posture is diametrically opposite, but for this very reason, it's closely connected. It tends to be, well, the world is not meaningful, right? The world has shown that it is not meaningful. I create my own meaning in my own NI world. The translation of this is, I'm not creating meaning, and I'm trying to justify not creating meaning, okay? Because creating meaning in the NI world is a doomed enterprise. You don't create meaning in the NI world. If you're just in the NI world and you're not doing any kind of interaction, you're not activating FE. Through activating FE, you're not activating SE. So you're not feeding your NI vision, your NI worldview. What you will end up with is a very monolithic architecture of your NI world. It will solidify little by little, and it will progressively look more and more predictable and run around itself by its own tail and stop being productive. And in the process of it stopping to be productive, it will lose what ability it had to create meaning. And so you find meaninglessness both in excessively adaptive lives, blamed at a lack on the part of the outside world, and you get a meaninglessness in the solipsistic life, not blamed but covered, concealed by an avowed and exaggerated attempt to keep investing NI and only NI to retrieve a meaning that is making itself more and more scarce. So alienation from meaning, I want to conclude with this, is always alienation from the possibility of relationships. Never underestimate the extent to which meaning emerges in the margins of interaction with the other, and seeing yourself in the eye of the other. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video, guys. Don't forget I have a Patreon page on top. I mentioned the 2 books already in the course of my video, so you can get both those books at the link below. Check the reviews; they've helped a lot of people. The Patreon page, yes, helps me massively to continue producing quality content for you. So please consider supporting me on Patreon. It's not expensive. You get some really great perks, like access to our Discord server, access to bonus videos every 2 weeks where I go in depth about a certain number of topics. There's other perks too. I hope to see you there. And have a look at my works if you're interested to see more about the way I think about the INFJ. The links to my books are below. And I'll talk to you soon, guys. Bye-bye.